Well, we finished our net repair video a few days ago, just trying to show some of you guys that don't know how, just a few ways to sew up some holes and stuff on your own. And we had a lot of comments on that video, and a lot of the guys were asking about maybe putting together a net build video, and maybe one on tying throats in and stuff like that. And I figure I'll make a few more videos, show y'all some of this other stuff, see how y'all like them. I got a net here that was given to me, and it had 2 bad throats in it. The net was fair, other than that. Rats got in it, of course, and gnawed a couple holes in it because I had it sitting on the ground. So I fixed them, and I started tying the throats in. And I've got one almost tied in, so I'm going to start this video now. I'm going to show you how I tied this one in, how I'm going to finish tying it in, and then how we tie in the front throat. Front and back throat's going to be tied in the same. They just got a different length of mesh in them, and the front throat's going to be a little wider than the catch throat, the second throat. I had to sew this mesh in. This I actually sewed every knot in this new mesh that you see, and I've already tied my lines running out my tail, and I've already tied my knots in here. You can see there's the first knot right there, and you can see there's 5 knots in there, and I'll show you in just a second what those 5 knots are for. What I'm doing here actually is making sure it's setting like I want it, that it's the right length and everything in the net itself. Some of the guys were asking about crawling up in the net and working on it. I have done that before. 3-foot net, I'm too old and fat to get in here. So I'm gonna tie it outside, but what I wanted to do was get me a mark where these 2 lines come together, and I'll pull these out the head and put them 2 lines together at that same place. So when I pull it back in here and tie it off, I've got the same amount of tension. So right here you can see where I marked. That's where these lines are gonna come to at the tail back there. So I'm gonna tie me a knot just for right now in these lines right there. So I'm tying them 2 together, and they stay right there like that, pretty close. So I'm gonna show you what I did right here. I should have recorded this, but I'll record the next one. This net was 1.5 inch mesh. The throat up in this area is 60 or 62 mesh around it. It's 9.5 mesh down to here, and I added 4.5 mesh. If you counted, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4.5 down here. So we know when we tying these out that our tie leads coming down to these main lines, you're only gonna have 5 or 6 on each side. So that leaves you 10 mesh to tie to up here. So I wanted to leave 10. I took up 2 right here on each side. So that's 12, 14, and another 10 on the bottom. So that's 24 mesh around at this throat. And you say, well, how big a fish will that catch when I get done with it? Well, this will open up huge, so it'll catch a pretty big fish. What I had to do here was, we know we wanted to end up with 24 mesh down here, so I had to start taking up here pretty quick. So when we take up and we're sewing mesh, instead of grabbing 1 and tying a knot on it, we just grab 2, and that takes up 1 mesh right there. And that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing right up here on this take up, is we just grab 2 mesh and tie our net knot right there. Then you got 1, 2, and on the 3rd one all the way around up here I took up. You got 1, 2, and that's the 3rd one. I'd grab 2. So I'd go 1. I could have done every other one, but I don't like to taper it all down at one time. And if you do, you'll end up with a taper, and then your throat will kind of turn like this. What I want is my throat kind of like this. So I took up here, I moved down here, took up every 4th or 5th knot, come down a little bit further, took up every 5th or 6th knot, until I got down here I was still taking up right here, but I only had to take up like 2 times down here, one on each side. And that got me down to 24 mesh down here. Now I'll show you this right here. Like I said, that was a take up too, because I grabbed 2 of them. When I tied my main line on, I tied it just like I would have tied any of these knots, the same knot as we did in the net repair. But you're just grabbing 2 of them. I'm just gonna come in there, just like in the net repair video, get a regular knot, tie it down like so. Tell you what, I'm gonna leave all of these actually loose here until we finish it, because we may have to come back and make an adjustment. And I'm also not gonna just cinch these down super tight just yet. This is gonna be our 5th knot. So I'm just tying some hitches right here. And like I said, I want this string the same tension as this one roughly. So we get them all the same. Then when we tighten up on this string, you can see right here how it's tightening up the whole net, not just right here. Put 2 or 3 hitches in there. When that dips, it's not coming loose, promise you. So now, I'm gonna go back and catch the 5th one on the top. 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. Same old knot as before. And before I pull that tight, I'm gonna check all this. Same thing on this side on the bottom. Our regular tie-in knot. Got our first hitch. Before I put any more hitches, I'll kind of double check everything. That's our 3rd hitch. Go ahead and get a 4th one right there. And then come back, get our next one on the top. Like I said, I'm not pulling these super tight just yet until we finish getting them all tied out. Same thing here. Get our first knot tied there on the bottom. There again, just regular hitches here. Little hitch knot. And I try to keep these the sides that I'm coming out of these hitches on this same side, so that this leader line here is not twisting up and stuff. Now you want to alternate. I don't want to tie out all of this side. We want to work our way around this net evenly, so one on this side, then one on this side. That way we're stretching this net all the same. Just keep putting our hitches in it. About 4 in each one. Now these knots can be tight up here. If we have to make any adjustments, it's going to be on this end, not up here. Trying to get y'all some different angles and get it as fast as possible on video, but it's impossible to get this really fast on video because it's so time consuming. This is the most technical part of catching fish, period, is this fluke right here. This one is the one we got to have right, you know. This is the one that catches. get our 3 or 4 hitches there. I like to put about 4 of them. Not gonna hurt a thing. Come back. It's always the easy part, just coming back and catching that. You get that far, it's not that hard. And we got our last ones right here. Once you get that first hitch right there tied tight and kind of relax a little bit, then the next 3 aren't that bad. Like I said, other people may tie these in different. This is how I've always done it. It's what works for me. And they catch, so doing something right. Y'all gotta excuse my terminology. It may not be perfect on some of this stuff. I'm just a redneck fixing nets. That's all. Nothing more. You can see what I did back at the tail end, marking these lines, pull them out the same. We ended up with our flues right here together. Perfect. Just not a lot online about this. A lot of old school net builders are going on to be with the good Lord. And they didn't have YouTube to put all this stuff on back then, so I'm not sure anybody's doing videos on this kind of stuff. It's a little saggy down here, but when you lift this up, you can see how that bottom one's tightening up right there. And I tell you, that's gonna be perfect when we get this thing tied out. Now that bridle is not where, got them feet picks in there. All right, we got our first throat here, the first flue that we're gonna work on. I've cut this out, the bad part already, except for just a little bit of it. Now I had a couple questions on the patch video about why did I use regular twine instead of tarred twine, and I answered those. One, it's just the way I've always done it, it's the way I was taught to do it. 2, I think that it tightens the knot better, and I dip after that, so if the net don't need dipping and I've just got a small patch, that white patch shows me where I need to dip, so I can go out there and just get just a little bit, put on that one spot, and I've got it dipped. But to me, tarred line, and I've got a piece here, tarred line is stiff and it's not flexible, and it's not going to soak up very much more tar than what it's got in it already. Just regular nylon twine will soak up that tar when it gets that dip. So my idea on it is, if I've got fresh knots without tar in them, I can pull those knots tighter and I'll get a better knot. And I'm just going to show you, I cut all of this out except for 3 of these knots that somebody tied in here. Hey, it's hard to see, but I can tell that this twine from here up is a different twine than from here down. And it was real easy to tell when I had the whole rest of the flue. But where they tied these knots on there, these knots are still loose. Now this was tarred line that they tied this flue in with, and some of them are semi-tight, but even that one's not tight. I can probably show you on this one right here how loose this knot is. I can pull this knot down over that. Now that knot is all the way untied right there, and that was a tarred piece of twine. I'll actually be able to untie this, and this net could have even gotten dipped after they tied this in, but the reason this will still untie is because this line was tarred first. it couldn't soak up more tar. It already was tarred twine. So that's why I don't patch. And you can see I'm untying it, and there ain't no way, anybody that knows anything about net fishing and dipping nets, there is no way that once that net was dipped, I should have been able to untie that right there. Now I promise you, if I tie that back with this twine and dip it, you will not untie that knot. It ain't happening. And this knot that was tied in, I just have to cut the edge of it like so, and then it'll pop loose. All right, that second flue we know was 14 loops long, 1.5 inch mesh. This one, when we cut it back out to here, I've got 7.5 meshes left. We're going to go ahead and take up here because we don't want this front flue nowhere near as long as that second one. We want it opened up where those fish will get in there, get to swimming around, they bump it a little bit, and they'll shoot on through that second flue, and then they're caught. So we're going to probably end up going somewhere around 9 or 10 mesh on this. And this is how we take up. I'm catching 2 of them right there. Just like when we were patching, same knot, always the same knot when I'm tying. I like to pull this tail end tight so that cinches down good. Now, here's what you gotta have to sew mesh. This is an 1.5 inch piece of oak board that I made. And this is just my, I just call it my net making board. I don't know what the proper terminology for it is, but it's 1.5 inches. And it's going to make me 1.5 inch mesh. So all I'm doing is pull that right up against the last knot, catch my other 2, pull that down, and I've got an 1.5 inch loop right there, 3 inch stretch mesh. I want to pull that down pretty tight, get my next one. I can turn loose of that one, catch my next one there, tighten it up, catch my next 2. I'm gonna go all the way around this net doing that, taking up. Threading my needle back up, getting ready to go again. Okay, I double counted. This is a 3-foot diameter net we're working on, and it was 60 meshes around it. So I took up every mesh all the way around to make this 30 meshes now. So I had 30 meshes. I went ahead and started so it'd be a little quicker on the video. And here where I started at, I did a little math on this to come up with how far to go to take up. We want to end up with 24 again, like we did on the back. Build it just like that. We want 24, so we need to take out 6 of these. We need to take up 6 times to end up with 24 meshes. So 6 will go into 35 times. So that means to take up once, we need to go 5 meshes. So I've went 1 right here, tied my first one, 2, 3, and I'll take up these 2, and that's 5 meshes. So if we do that all the way around, we're going to go, after this one, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then take up these 2, the next 2. So we're going to skip 3, take up 2, skip 3, take up 2, all the way around, and that should come out right. And you can see how much tighter this regular twine pulls than tarred twine. There's no question about that. So we're not taking up on the next 3. We'll catch the next 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'll take up the next one. And we'll continue that all the way around. That's 2 take ups so far. she can't help herself.
Mm-hmm.
And to do this, I don't think I showed y'all this. To make this loop, I just come down here 1.5 inches, tie me a knot. That's what I do. Right or wrong, that's the way I do it. That's always one of my loops right there. And you can stretch it a little bit if it's not exactly the same length. That'll stretch a little bit till it gets that tar in it. So like I said, we're gonna make one more loop and then we're gonna tie this one out just to get us some clean loops away from our take-ups. And I'm gonna tell you, I'll give y'all a tip of the day right here. I got this net tied out in the living room. So some of you guys got them city girls. I know they ain't gonna let you tie no net out in this living room like this. So my suggestion to you is if they won't let you tie one of these nets out in the living room, just get you a different one.
A different wife.
Yeah, a different wife. No, I ain't gonna condone that. My suggestion to you young guys is you better do some pretty good shopping first and make sure all this before you say I do. Danielle's pretty good about letting me get in here and do this kind of stuff. She don't say much. She just laughs at me. That's fine. What I've also done is made sure that I'm lined up with that flue down there. And I'm gonna catch, I've got 24, so I'm gonna catch 2. To me, the only reason that I'm doing that is, to me, it wouldn't be as strong as I've got that right there, as if I've got 2 there like that. That's a lot stronger. And what I've got here is my tie-out line with 5 knots tied in it, and I've got matching set for the other side. They're about 2 inches apart, those knots are. And I'm gonna pull up the same distance to start that one. And then I'm just tying the old net knot right there like so. Pulling that tight. I'm gonna double check, make sure everything's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down there. So that's gonna put us exact opposite side over here. Take my other string. Catch that one. Pull it down. Go underneath, back through the loop. It's the same style knot over there. You can pull on that whatever you want to do. That's there. So this should have been taken up like back in here instead of way down here. This was the quickest way for whoever built this net to build it, was just to sew this much webbing in that got them as far as they could down here before they took up. They probably took up, and my guess was this old flue was tied right in here somewhere. I can't remember how many meshes I cut out, but it definitely wasn't much more than this. And they tied it out the side of the net so it was open like this. I would have taken up, we ended up with 9 meshes. I would have taken up, left 8 mesh up here, started my tie out back here, tied it through the tail end like I'm going to, and this net would have been just a little bit more open than this. Each one's just a hitch. I mean, that hitch with tar in it is not coming loose. Never had one come loose. Like I said, I put like 4 of them in there. I think 3 would be plenty actually. Like so. And then I come up here and get this one. So when you dip the net and put the strain on it, hang it, pull everything tight. All these knots are tight anyways. So when you dip it, it's all gonna lock in place. To a big fish, when he's coming in here to this flue, yeah, it looks long, it looks tight, but all of this looks open to him. And you know, a lot of people look at a throat from way off, like back yonder, and they're like, well, it's too tight or too open or whatever. Well, that fish can't see from here to the back of that flue. That fish can only see, you know, in that muddy water, maybe like this far. So, you know, he's swimming up in here, he's against some brush for all he knows, and he's up in here before he actually sees this opening. And a big fish, you just can't make me believe that he's not just gonna go right on through there. Yeah, I can go through this flue. I know what Danielle wants. Travis wants it too. He's done commented on one of the videos. He wants me to make his net, crawl up in it, and show y'all that a big fish can go in this net. Bet he gets a kick out of that, so I don't know. Y'all have to watch the whole video to see if I do that or not. Loose. Try not to burn my finger. Okay, we're ready to tie the tension on our flues. I've got both flues tied in. All the holes are patched in the net. Everything's ready. And I had to reverse it and tie off to the kitchen table to get this the right height. When I tie this off like this, especially bringing that front flue all the way through the tail end, I want the net sitting like it's going to sit on the bottom. So I went ahead and tied off the head and the tail ends just like it's going to be sitting in the bottom. Show you my thoughts on tying this in. This one was already made with its poly through the tail end of the rope. There's nothing tied here, so what I'm going to do, I went ahead and tied them even, both sets. I've tied a knot in here, and that's to keep my two sides the same so I don't get off when I pull tension. All I've got to do is just pull it. I'm going to bring it right up through this loop right here in this poly. Put the tension on it, and I'm going to show y'all how to set this. I've got that knot up through there, and basically what I'm going to do is I can pull tension against this loop however tight I want, and I can go to throwing hitches in here, and I can hitch this around and tighten up this tail end. I've got plenty of slack back here anyways. When you put tension on this net, you want your net to pull tight, but you want that flue to pull tight just a hair ahead of that net. Like, it needs to be just a little bit tighter than that net. So I can test everything right here by pulling, and I can see I've still got slack in my flue, and there's no slack hardly any in the net. So I want to pull that flue just a little bit tighter, and I'm going to throw a half hitch in that twine right there and try to seal it in where I want it, double check it and everything before I lock it in all the way. So while I've got that there, I'm going to pull that real tight, work that hitch down tight, and I'm going to go ahead and put another one in it to seal the deal. Looks fairly good. Pull on it, net stretching nice. Like, I think it's gonna be pretty good right there. About what we want. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead, and I already knot's gotta come through there. So I got that knot on that side. Tie this back off again. Okay. Now. All right. I got this one tied off. That's the back flute. And it gets tight or about the same time or just before the rest of the net does. Got this one worked in there to where I can tension it up. And I'll pull it fairly tight, but I don't want it taking all the work away from my back flute. So I'm gonna pull it up against that one, about where I think. And I'm gonna kind of walk down there and double check it, kind of see if it's sitting right like I want. Want it just a little bit tighter. Now, what I can say is on this one, I'm gonna go, I went this way with this one, I'm gonna go the opposite way with this one. So I can tie them two together after I put a couple hitches in them, and they won't give at all. None. You can do this a lot of different ways. I have even used these lines, tied it, and then braided them out for my actual loop back here before. Some of my nets have those braided loops. A lot of different ways you can do this. Like I said, the reason I went one way with one of these and one way with the other was so I could come up here like so and just tie these two together. Like that. I'm just sealing these hitches off, trying to make them as least likely for that net to get hung in as possible. Try to get them down flat. Yeah, that was almost bad. Kind of streamline that a little bit down on the floor. All right, that's it. All right, there it is, finished product. 3 foot, 1.5 inch mesh net. Had a few holes in it. Flues didn't suit me. Got the first one, got the second one. Turned out pretty good for first one I've did in several years. Say, well, I don't know if that's open enough. Well, yeah, 40, 50 pound cat will go in that. I'll prove it. My buddy Travis, I'm gonna do this one for him. He wanted to see it, so a lot of people don't understand that these nets will still open up big enough for a big fish to get in. I'm like 200 and something pounds. I'm a 200 pound flathead, I guess.
World record.
So he's in here. Probably get stuck in here tonight. Won't be able to get out.
The belt.
Yep, the belt got me. If I can get
back through the net.
Oh, yeah. Do some editing on this video. Alright.
No, it's keeping it real.
Thing is, once that catfish got his head in there, it's too late
Oh
then.
gosh.
So, that'd be the view he's got here. He turn around, bump that. He's got to go on through there. That's when he's gonna get caught. Yep. Catfish a lot more slippery than I am. So, once he gets in there, he's done through there at that point. Once his head and fins get in there, he's caught. So yeah, I know Danielle's gonna have fun putting this on TikTok.
Oh, am I ever?
Yep. Well, that's it.
You look so cute.
I don't know about that. Now you gotta let me out of here.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about all that.
No, I can't get out. Not till you undo that line down there.
All right.
Yep. No fun for tonight.
Tell them bye.
Bye. That's gonna be it for this one. God's Country Hunting and Fishing, keeping it real.